People of the internet, welcome back to another video. It is I, Don Thomas, back in here with another one. As always, folks, the likes, the comments, the subscribes are all greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the support on this channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic, folks. I got a video pulled up. Comes from Fox 5 News in New York, where of course some of you may have heard by now that the verdict has been brought forth in the Danniel Penny case. Of course, if you're not familiar, Danniel Penny was a gentleman who some would call a hero. He was a dude, of course, on a subway who was acting erratically on a public subway, and Danniel Penny was a man who felt he was equipped to neutralize the situation. A man lost his life. Forgot the gentleman's name. The subway performer that was performing at that time lost his life in the matter. People have found him not guilty in doing so. I'm going to play a little bit of a clip that I have pulled up here. Of course, again, comes from Fox 5 News, specifically in New York City. So as I usually do, I'll share my thoughts. Of course, I encourage you guys to share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Let's get into it.
I can tell you, though, now is that Danniel Penny has been found not guilty of criminally negligent homicide. That was the second count. Remember, the first count, the jury could not come to a conclusive decision on a unanimous decision. But this one, they were unanimous, not guilty. The jury deliberating for more than 24 hours across 5 days before finally reaching this verdict. Danniel Penny found not guilty on all counts. On Friday, the judge overseeing dismissed the more severe charge of second-degree manslaughter, which carried a 15-year maximum sentence after the jury was unable to reach that unanimous verdict on that count. Prosecutors allege that Penny killed Neily. We'll go back to what this case is. A 30-year-old homeless man who had previously been a Michael Jackson impersonator when he placed him in a 6-minute-long chokehold on a subway car last year, including for 51 seconds after his body went limp. Now, Assistant District Attorney have argued that Penny knew his actions could kill Neily, but continued to hold him in a chokehold for what they said was way too long, and they did not recognize his humanity. The medical examiner concluded that the chokehold did kill Neily. The defense arguing that Neily died from a genetic condition, they say, and that the synthetic marijuana found in his system, the jury saying they did not believe that. The defense attorney telling jurors that Penny acted to save subway passengers from a violent and desperate, that's a quote here, Neily, who was acting erratically and, quote, scared the living daylights out of everybody. But they were arguing that Neily was fighting back, and Penny continued to hold on because he feared he could break free, but he did not intend to kill Neily. We're waiting.
All right, cool. So, of course, there you heard the story, folks. When I originally heard the story, I wasn't as knowledgeable on it. I feel like I'm not as knowledgeable on it still in terms of just like the in-depth of this whole situation. Now, I do know, of course, the gist of it all basically is that Penny, of course, African-American dude. I'm sorry, Neily was his name. Is it Neily? Yeah. So the dude that lost his life, African-American kid, around, middle-aged man or young adult, I should say, basically was Michael Jackson impersonator on a train. Now I'll pause right here and say, man, if any of you guys have been a passenger on a New York City subway train, I have. Right? So my context is coming from, of course, I want to share my thoughts on how I, kind of view this whole situation. I'm speaking as somebody who has been on a New York City subway train. It was my primary means of transportation for a year and a half when I used to live in New York. This was years ago, over a decade ago. This was years ago. Maybe 2016, 2014, 2015, 2013, 2014, 2015, around this time. So as somebody who rode on the 1 train and the A train for a year and a half consistently and has been a passenger on a New York City train, I can assure you that, yes, you will see all types of things on that train. Gentleman who lost his life was a Michael Jackson impersonator. That's nothing new, of course. So he would dress up as Michael Jackson, maybe come on train with the boom box, do the dances, do anything. And, people usually give them tips and this, that, and the other. That's just one of the hustles on a train. I've seen snack kids. Excuse me, guys. Moment of attention, please, everybody. I'm raising some money. They'll be holding a big box of snacks and candies. I'm raising some money here. People will come, woo, this, that, and the other. I've seen people come on the train, preach the good word. These are things that I've all seen with my own eyes. People preach the good word of God on the train. People are drunk on the train. People sleep or are homeless on the train. I've seen all types of activities and characters that take place on the train. So with that being said, you hear the story of another incident where unique individuals are on a New York City train. One this time seemed to have been a little bit irate, was maybe threatening their lives or the well-being or the security and the safety of other people on the train. A man steps up by the name of Danniel Penny, a white man, steps up and feels like he is best suited to neutralize the situation. And he does so. The maneuver in which he does to neutralize the situation ended up taking a man's life, and here we are right now. Now, of course, inevitably, some people are going to be thrown in the race card. Oh, it was a black man. Another white man being overly aggressive with the black man. When does it end? When does it end? Because, of course, you heard in this verdict as well, too, in this clip that I played, there was people on both sides. There were people on the side of Danniel Penny feeling like he was a hero and did what he had to do for the well-being of himself and the people on the train and neutralize what people thought was a threatening situation. There's people championing that. There's people hailing him a hero on that. On the other side of that, of course, there's other people who are on the side of Neily, the gentleman, the young man who lost his life in defense of saying, oh, you know, they were too aggressive. He just needed help. You know, he wasn't, of course, I think there were stories he had history of mental health issues, homelessness, this, that, and the other, maybe slight drug abuse here and there, this, that, and the other. People were arguing that there was another means, without taking his life, to neutralize that situation if you thought he was a threat. Here's where I stand on this whole situation. Again, going back to the context that I gave you, you know, when you've experienced something, when you've been in a situation, you have a little bit more context as opposed to somebody who doesn't know the exact environment of a New York City train. Again, A train and the one train. If you know, you know. Shout out to all my New Yorkers. If you know, you know. That was my primary means of transportation for almost a year and a half. My stance on the whole situation is this. Had I been on that train as a passenger on the train, and out of the blue, of course, somebody, a street performer, street cart performer is what they call them, cart performer, train performer, whatever the case is, a man is acting irate and is maybe threatening because, again, I don't know the full context. I don't know what Neily was saying in the situation. I know they were saying he was aggressive, he was belligerent, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 to people on the train or maybe, you know, Penny altogether. So if somebody's on a train, on a New York City train, mind you, you could be going to work, you could be going home, whatever your situation is, you just want to make it to your destination and somebody comes on that train. If I had been on this train and I witnessed a civilian felt like they were best suited to neutralize the situation, because we all got to admit, if you're a passenger on that train, that's an inconvenience for you as well too. Mind you, you're probably used to it to some degree because you've seen, everybody knows in New York City, if you are an inhabitant of New York City, you know that is common practice. People will be on that train of all walks of life. So if one in particular is getting irate and is belligerent and now you're a little bit concerned of your own safety, you're concerned with your own well-being, you don't know what he got on him, you don't know, the situation, you don't know if he's going to come towards you next, this, that, and the other. If I'm another passenger on a train and maybe I feel like I'm not best suited to do something, but another passenger does feel like they are best suited to neutralize the situation, which some would argue you would be appreciative of, I'm not going to be mad at that. I'm not mad if I myself couldn't do it, but another person was able to, hey man, excuse me, sir. And I've seen that so many times on the train as well too. I've seen strangers go back and forth, yell at each other off the most pettiest things. I've seen it. I've seen people argue this, that, the other, and then, go their separate ways. Man, you lucky I'm getting off at the next stop or see me when we get off. I've seen so many things on the train. So it's just like, I'm just putting myself in the situation of a passenger on a New York City subway and being in the vicinity of somebody who's belligerent, who I can't really read, who I don't really know what they're capable of. And again, another civilian steps up and, okay, people are arguing that is a little bit aggressive, puts them in a chokehold or submissive hold. I'm not necessarily mad at that attempt, bro. I'm not. So I am on the side of the verdict. I do think it was a correct verdict. Again, I don't know the specifics. Maybe they're trying to tie in other things within Penny. Oh, he was, this, that, blah, blah, blah. He's not remorseful. Of course, they're gonna dig deep to paint a picture about certain people. But if we're just speaking on the fundamental of the situation, the fundamentals, like what happened, regardless of race, regardless of all emotions and bias and this and the other, a belligerent person came onto a public space and another civilian thought he fulfilled his civic duties and try to neutralize the situation for the betterment of himself and the people on the train. I'm not mad at that. I'm not. So I do think the people in the New York City court system, they got it right on this one. I think not guilty is the right verdict. in my personal opinion. Oh, how can you say that? You're a black man too, though, man. That could be your brother. That could be you. That could be... And that'll be the rebuttal, but I think that's an emotional response as opposed to a logical response, in my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with race. I would argue, again, I don't know the character of this man. You can say, man, he was only aggressive with him because it was a black man. Or, you know, this, that, yeah. I can't speak to the intentions of the motives of Danniel Penny and why he was supercharged to go as aggressive as he did. But I would argue this. A nuisance is a nuisance. A threat is a threat. I would argue to believe if Danniel Penny stood up and found out that that man was a white man, a black man, an Asian man, an Indian man, I think, in my personal opinion, again, I can't speak for him, I don't know, I would assume race had nothing to do with the situation. Maybe. I'm not going to say it didn't. Maybe. Because again, one would have to entertain that idea because of just our history, U.S. history. So it's not uncommon, right, for there to be racial tension between a white man and a black man, and you know, this, that, and the other. So it's not uncommon. I'm not saying these things don't happen. I'm not saying it wasn't. It couldn't have been racially charged. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But what I do know is that, unfortunately, at the loss of another human being's life, who some could argue wasn't well mentally, wasn't well, you know, emotionally. Yeah, of course, there was evidence of that as well, too. And that maybe even opens up a whole nother conversation of men's mental health. That's been a lot of things I've been speaking about on this channel as well, too. Men's mental health and a lack of resources, because if we were all sober-minded individuals, people know how to conduct themselves on a public train, right? If we were all doing the work in terms of self-mastery and making sure our mental's good and making sure we have just basic etiquette when it comes to just being in public settings, whether that be a restaurant, whether that be a sporting event, whether that be a train, we should all probably have the foundation down packed in terms of how to conduct ourselves. So if our mental is allowing us to act irrational, our emotional state, this, that, and the other, we're homeless, we're down bad, whatever the case is, then maybe that's a whole nother conversation as preventative maintenance. That's how we can avoid situations like this moving forward. You see what I'm saying? So again, in my personal opinion, not to ramble, not to draw this thing out, I am on the side of the internet that believes this verdict was indeed correct. I do believe Danniel Penny being found not guilty was the right call. I'll take it a step further and even say this, man. I'm not opposed to citizens intervening. Because, yeah, in some situations, it would be right. In some situations, it would be wrong. But a lot of the times, if we all sit back, right, especially in New York as well, too, that's another thing they say as well, too. There's signs on the train. If you see something, say something. There's literally advertising in the New York City trains that say, if you see something, say something. That could be, you know, if you see a mysterious bag left under a chair, if you see somebody acting suspicious, it's almost a citizen call. A citizen's call in advertising in the New York City trains. If you see something, say something, man. So if more people did that, again, both sides, if more people made sure they were doing the work to make sure they're mentally and emotionally stable, that's one thing. But in the event that people don't have the resources or the, you know, their well-being is off, yeah, man, I'm not opposed to citizens' arrests. The good guys with good intent. You see what I'm saying? With good intentions. Like, I feel like sometimes the cops are too far away. There's not always going to be an officer in arm's reach to come and help, you know, see to it that an environment is safe. And even we know in history as well, too, we know the situations where officers get it wrong. And people end up losing their lives when officers step on the scene. You see what I'm saying? So let's not act as if this is something that, oh, no, Danniel Penny, like, officers can come on the scene and get it wrong, too. And innocently kill somebody as well, too. We've seen that before. Let's not be oblivious to that. So it's just like, all right, if officers are coming in and it could go right, it could go wrong, I'm not mad that in a situation where a civilian did the same thing. In this situation, I think it went right because, again, put yourself in the shoes of a passenger on a New York City train. Let's just pause for a moment and put yourself in the shoes. If some of y'all have experienced this before, but if you haven't, it's a scene that would require you to be very diligent about your surroundings. And that's why New Yorkers, man, I respect New Yorkers, man. Y'all like built differently. New Yorkers are built differently because of the environment. It's literally a concrete jungle. So it's like New Yorkers, if there's a little edge to them or a little fearlessness to them, look at their environment. So again, put yourself in the shoes of a New York City passenger on a train, whether you're going to work, whether you're just trying to make it back home to your family, and somebody comes on acting crazy, and another passenger just whose mission is also trying to just make it home in one piece, make it to work in one piece, whatever the case is. So he's like, yo, man, I got this. Fall back. I got this. I'm going to neutralize the situation. because he was maybe doing the work. He looked skilled at maybe, you know, martial arts or wrestling or whatever the case is. That's just whatever. But if he felt like he was best suited to neutralize that situation, to see to it that he can get home safely and get to where he got to go, and it ultimately benefiting everybody else that's on that same train as well too, I'm not mad at that, bro. I'm not. Sorry. I'm not. So again, it's unfortunate that somebody lost their life. If we had the proper measurements in hand in terms of just preventative maintenance, we could avoid situations like this, man. If everybody's doing their part in society, if everybody's making sure their mental's good, their, you know, physical's good, you know, the basic just etiquette of just in terms of just like how to operate yourself, how to function within in public settings. There's some things you just don't do. You see what I'm saying? In New York City at that, come on. That's my thoughts. Of course, I want to hear yours down in the comment section below. What do you make of this situation, folks? Did the court systems get it right, in your opinion, or did they get it wrong? Do you view Danniel Penny as a hero in the situation, or is Neily just another victim of the system? That's my thoughts. Of course, I want to hear yours down in the comment section below. As always, the likes, the comments, the subscribes are all greatly appreciated. I will catch you on the next one.